So if you recall, we looked at in the previous video how to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form when we are provided with a slope and a point on that line. And there are multiple ways that you can write equations. So let's look at a second way, but let's review the first way. If you remember the first one, and I'll kind of scroll back up here, we were given a slope and we were given a point on the line, and we plugged in the slope for m and the point on the line, solved for b, and once we knew b, we could write the equation. Because remember, slope-intercept form works for every point on the line. So every xy pair on the line will make the equation y equals mx plus b work for a certain m and a certain b. So moving along down here, we're looking at writing an equation of a line that passes through 2 points instead of being provided the slope. So we actually have one additional step that we didn't have a while ago. We don't know the slope. In the previous example, we knew the slope. So we actually have to find the slope, and that is where the slope formula comes in. The slope formula, remember, is the change in y over the change in x. It is the vertical change divided by the horizontal change. Okay? So when we look at a slope, we're looking at up and down over left and right. Hence, when you look at the formula for slope, notice that the y values are in the numerator and the x values are in the denominator. A lot of people miss this because they get the x and y switched. Just because x comes first when you're doing coordinates like this. Oops, let me choose a different color. Thought I did. Just because x comes first when you're plotting points doesn't mean it comes first when you're doing slope. Slope, the vertical change comes first on top and the horizontal is on the bottom. The way you can look at this, up is positive, down is negative. When you look on the horizontal front, right is positive, left is negative. And that's how you determine the type of slope you have. So when I have 2 points, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in my 2 points to the slope formula here. The difference in the two y values, which tells me my vertical change, divided by the difference in the two x values. So let's check out the 2 points I have. Point number 1, 1, 2. Point number 2, 3, negative 2. Let's look at our x and y coordinates as I watch the Cowboys stink the whole field up right now. Anyway, so we have x and we have x and we have y and we have y. So I'm looking at these 2 points trying to decide how I'm going to plug them into the slope formula. Well, the slope formula doesn't matter which one is y1 and which one is y2, but you have to match the xy pairs. So whatever I plug in for y2, that same value, its partner has to go in for x2. Whatever I plug in for y1 and x1, the partner of y1, whatever x1, has to go in for x1. So let's look at the formula over here. I always rewrite formulas with the symbols and plug in the values. So let's look at my x values here. My two x values are, my x values are 1 and 3. My y values are 2 and negative 2. So let's set this up. 2 minus negative 2. Now, do you see why I rewrote the formula? It's because I don't want you to skip that negative. That negative, you can't forget that. A lot of people will make that mistake and just put 2, negative 2 and forget that it is a difference. You are subtracting. On the bottom, since I chose 2 as y1, 1 is x1, and 3 is x2. So I'm going to come through here. 2 minus a negative becomes a positive. That's 4 on top. And then 1 minus 3 on the bottom is negative 2. And when I work that out and reduce it, I get my slope as negative 2. So m is negative 2. Now, Remember, when we did slope-intercept form, we needed m and we needed a point on the line, an xy coordinate. Well, we've got our choice now. To solve for b, I can pick either point that I have. Remember, the whole idea is that slope-intercept form works for every point on that line. So I can use 1, 2, or I can use 3, -2 to plug in for my xy. It doesn't matter. But which one should I probably pick that's easiest? 1, 2. That's the easiest one because it's just two whole positive numbers. So let's come back down here and look how the equation was done. We just got the slope is -2. So what I did was I took -2 and I plugged it in for m. And you can see that. Now let's look at my xy's. I'm going to pick this guy right here. So 1 is my x, which is there. And 2 is my y, which is there. And you can see I just solve it like algebra. So -2 times 1 is -2. And remember, you want to solve for b, so I'm going to add that 2 to both sides, which cancels this one out and leaves me with 2 plus 2 on this side, which is 4. B is 4. Now I have b, I have m, and I can now write my equation. Y equals mx plus b. So let's do another example. This one is the same as the one we did in the previous video, except you have to do the extra step of finding the slope. So let's look at one of these guys down here. So let's look at number 4. Let's go ahead and do number 4. Write the equation in slope-intercept form of a line that goes through those 2 points. So we are trying to get here from here. First thing I've got to do is find the slope. Well, remember the slope formula says we are looking at the difference in the 2 y's divided by the difference in the 2 x's. So my 2 y's are 6 and -10. So I'm going to plug in 6 and -10. And my 2 x's are -1 and 7. So all I'm doing right now is completing the slope so I can find the slope. So with the slope, we have 6 minus -10. That becomes a positive, and that's 16. And then on the bottom, we have -1 minus 7, which is -8. Because you're at -1, subtracting 7 more. So 16 divided by -8 is -2. So my slope is -2. So I have my m. I'm set on my m. Now, when I look at my equation, I'm going to plug in my slope, and then I'm going to plug in one of the 2 points I have to find b. And remember, you can choose either point. I can choose -1, 6, or I can choose 7, -10 to plug into x and y. It doesn't matter which one. So I'm going to choose -1, 6. So I'm going to rewrite my equation. Remember, we're looking at y equals mx plus b, so let's plug in what we have. M is -2. X, let's use the first point, is -1. Y is 6. And then we're looking for b. So 6 is equal to -2 times -1, which is just 2, plus b. And then I'm going to get the 2 moved over. We're going to solve for b. So 4 is equal to b. Now I know m and I know b. So I can write my equation. Y equals -2x plus 4. And again, there's m, There's B. So that is how you write the equation of a line given 2 points. You have to find the slope first, then plug in.